to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He's the author of the upcoming book, Winning Your Divorce, none other than Mr. Alex or Dane. Welcome, Mr. Alex. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
And, uh, I'm Alex Dane, and I authored this nonfiction book, Winning Your Divorce. It's basically a guide for when a collaborative or a non-high conflict divorce hasn't worked out. And at the beginning of my journey, I found I was at this point where I had the least amount of brain power, but had to make the biggest decisions around legal matters in custody and that. And when I looked up to the literature that was out there or to ask questions, I found that there was a lot of information that was missing that I wished I knew at that time. So I kind of kept track while I was going through this whole process. And as I got near the end, started writing while I put my kiddo to bed just after.
Mr. Alex, tell us what personal or professional experiences motivated you to write How to Win Your Divorce?
Yeah, it's I didn't write it from my profession, but within my professional experience, I'd written kind of more technical papers in that sort of area. What I actually wanted to share through this book was the experience of someone that's gone through it, but as well make it a little bit more realistic. I found some of the literature out there that was written on this topic. It was pretty PC, and it was a lot of it was around how to collaborate and how. But there kind of comes a point where that's not an option, even though I wish it would. This book isn't for people who, if you have the option to, go to mediation, you should do it. We definitely tried that as well. But this is for when that isn't working out and when you need to get through more legal help on the way.
Mr. Alex, divorce is often emotionally charged topic. Why did you feel it was important to approach it from a battle-tested perspective? When you first sat down to write this book, what was the key message?
Yeah. So I think the key message is that once you're in that situation, you're in a system, and no one wins once you're in that, when you're in that system. Winning your divorce, my own words. But there are ways to get through it smoother, get to the outcome that's fair for you and for the whole process. And there are ways to kind of combat if there are different kind of negative tendencies from the other side that I wrote about with this book. As well, you need to understand that the system is there, and when I talk about the system, I mean family courts or courts in general. Um, they're there to kind of have some sort of process that everyone goes through. But once you're in that process, um, you need to be able to navigate it so that you can get to outcomes that are better for children and better for yourself. Because it's more focused on resolution and finding quick answers times for the whole process.
How does your book differ from a typical legal or self-help divorce guides already available?
Yeah, I think that this one differs because it's a little bit more realistic about what's going on. I try to be gender non-specific. I think that it's kind of a trap if you start to think that divorce or family court is kind of more unfair for one gender or the other gender. Um, and as well, I think that the kind of realism about how I talk about kind of justice and legality because I'm not a lawyer and because I'm not a professional. I could be quite a bit more honest about that.
Mr. Alex, navigating family court. For someone stepping into a family court for the first time, what is the single most important piece of advice you'd give?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few. I would say build your support network very quickly. The number one piece of advice, which you'll reach it fairly quickly in the book, is come to grips that you're about to go through an unfair process. And then a very close number two piece of advice is be strategic. You need to come up with that strategy and understand that everyone is kind of working through their own kind of strategies to get where they're going.
Be strategic for sure to win the battle. What common mistake do you see parents make in family court, and how can your guide help them avoid these pitfalls?
Yeah, so I think some common things are reacting too quickly when people are emotional. So I mean, there ends up being a lot of emails, different kind of legal documents like affidavits that go back and forth, and being able to pause at least for 24 hours before responding, and then when you respond, making sure that it's strategic as well. Being able to manage perceptions of yourself out to either to your own legal team, to the judges, to the mediators, to whatever part of the process, being able to manage the perception that you're putting out, and understanding that at least part of society is going to see you through, for lack of a better word, the kind of stereotypes that they're going to put on for you. And so you doubly have to manage your perceptions to kind of fight back against that while you're moving forward through the process.
Moving process indeed. And how do you balance the practical legal strategies in your book with the deeply personal and emotional challenges of advice?
100%. Yeah. Devoted chapters specifically to, how to kind of, with some tips and tricks around how to manage your emotions, but as well, there's an appendices with kind of worksheets people can work through. I'm always a big sucker for kind of writing down. Obviously, I wrote a book, but writing my way through kind of what's going on at the time. Um, Really being able to kind of build a network of support around yourself so that you have people that are there to support you emotionally, understanding that there there are actually uses for some of these negative emotions through this process, but that they must come out at the right times. And so what I kind of figure understood that I learned about myself was that you kind of need that sadness and that might be happening because it takes the edge off anxiety sometimes when you're going into the process. And when everything's hopeless, there's no way through. You kind of need that thing, at least, which should let go of it. But you need that to be able to give you the energy to keep up the fight, keep up doing all the things to push through the whole process. But through all that, as long as you keep your north of doing what's best for your children, making sure none of those negative are coming into your parents, then 90%.
Mr. Alex, you're logging. Oh, can you just make sure that your, I don't know, your microphone or internet are so secured, or make sure that you're near to the microphone because
Sure.
you're logging. So my next question is, what ways does your book emphasize protecting the best interests of children during divorce proceedings?
Yeah, I'm very specific about that. So separating your time, understanding that your time with your children is uh, both the time to kind of build that relationship or continue that relationship, um, that you need to create a separation between the legal battle that's going on. You can use them as your North Star to keep pushing through, but you need to be doing your own emotional intelligence work in order to make sure that when you're showing up to parent, that you're 100% showing up just to parent.
How can parents ensure they don't unintentionally drag their children into the conflict?
Um, I wonder how it could be unintentionally. Could you just clarify it a little bit?
Yes, Mr. Alex?
Sorry, did that not come through? As kind of, I'd have a hard time understanding how it would be unintentionally bringing children into the conflict. I think that it would have to be intentional to bring them in, but I think perhaps it could be unintentional if we weren't managing our own emotions. So, coming to the realization that um, I really needed to kind of switch gears. So, whether you need to take that time, that 30 minutes before your transition pickup in the car, show up early to kind of focus and center. If you need to kind of do some journaling in that time, if you have different family members that you can talk to beforehand, those are kind of some different ways that you can work through that. But really changing the view of that time with children to be that time to recharge, to focus and focus on that relationship with them. Um, and really put aside kind of all the court stuff to the best of your ability. Take it easy on yourself because it's easier said than done. But have that, it can actually be charged.
They provide strategies for co parenting after the divorce, or each so, the focus primarily on the court battle itself.
Definitely strategies that can be used for communication because sometimes some of the high conflict tactics they don't disappear kind of after the divorce, and so things like communicating through email. With a definite section referring to another book around both if statements, but also kind of with current technology. If I'm writing a text or writing an email and it's in an emotional situation, even today, it's really helpful actually to kind of run that through ChatGPT or something else to ask if, hey, how is this going to come off? Or to run it by someone else, how is this going to come off? How can I make it more concise? And how can I make it more friendly before sending it?
Mr. Alex, what advice do you give parents who feel their ex spouse is weaponizing custody or visitation rights?
Yeah, so there's a whole section they need to document. Um, you need to be able to kind of work, and a lot of this being over emails after goes, but working within taking their information, understanding the perception of what's written will be multiple parties, lawyers, and being able to craft a response so that you're ensuring that the perception of what you're putting back out is one the direction that you want it to go in. So in order to do that, it's a little bit complex because our minds become clouded through the emotions that are at that time because we're dealing with the most important things in life, which is our children, our family. So to manage it, then you need to be strategic and very clear with communication. People tend to send pages and pages of emails back, and by the time it gets to court, one thing that I found was that even affidavits weren't necessarily read by the judges, and so everything is distilled into 2 or 3 points. And so if someone is manipulating children or weaponizing custody to use it, you need to build that up time, be able to present it very clearly to judges and understand that it needs to be distilled into 2 or 3 points.
Mr. Alex, strategies and tactics. Could you share one or two courtroom strategies from the book that you believe every divorcing parent should know?
Um, if we go back to what I was just talking about, is when you're in kind of sending back and forth affidavits, um, you know, understanding that everyone is a human being, even the professionals, the judges and the lawyers. It took me a bit to figure it, but I work within a system, a different system. But once I figured it out, that okay, all these people know each other, and so your lawyer has ethics that they have to deeply kind of represent you and represent you in a way that you want them to, and they have to vigorously defend your position or move you forward with it. But they also know each other and they also have careers. And so there's this complex balance that they have to navigate um, with, all their different relationships as well going through this. And so understanding that piece. And then number two is if you're facing off against someone that's high conflict, a lot of times I think about the prisoner's dilemma, which prisoner's dilemma, a quick version, is you get a less prison sentence if um, one person on they're kind of both, one person gives up the other. Uh, that's kind of the prison sentence. If they both tell the highest prison, and if they both don't, they both get off. But you can start to realize that conflict is always going to make a choice, which is to try negatively outcome or do the opposite of what you're saying. And so building a strategy around that will manage all the percent of legal team, very legal, and the judge. I think
Mr. Alex, our conversation is truly logging, and let's continue this. And then afterward, watch it. And if you want to do it again, just book again for another time. Okay. So, how important is documentation, and what kinds of records do you recommend parents keep during this process?
yeah, documentation is very important, but you can quickly end up with unclear documentation and lots of it. You need to be able to distill it into very presentable information, both for your own lawyer because they don't understand everything, but then as well for them to use with the judges and with everyone else. So it's a very clear kind of picture that you're putting forward. For documentation, there's a lot of different apps. If you can get the co-parenting apps and everyone to work with those are best case scenario. Otherwise, I just run on Notes or on Google Docs quite often and just keep a running file going with it. Sorry, apologies for the lag. I'm not sure 100% what's going on.
No worries at all. So, how do you address the financial aspect of divorce in your book, as such as child support or division of assets?
Yeah, so I mean, child support. I don't know. I haven't run into people that I think people are usually pretty okay with paying child support. It's usually just a calculation that there's not much kind of one way or the other way that people adjust with it. And but the legal cost of the whole enterprise is considerable. I couldn't help but think off the beginning that if we had like a community of our peers and we all kind of moved through this within 2 weeks somehow with some elder from the community or something like that, it would be a much better process for everyone involved. But that isn't the kind of situation that it is. And so what I had to do was become a money-making machine, as I call it in the book, which was when I didn't have my children. It's children now, sorry. I didn't have my child at that time. I was working sometimes 1, 2 jobs at a time, started consulting off the side. And I talk a lot about that in the book, about specifically how much money I need and how much you'll need to kind of do this. B, what I saw other people do and kind of realized along the way was that there was a lot of benefit to self representation. I didn't do it necessarily, but it seemed like the court systems give a lot of leeway when people do that. It's not like TV where they say that that's a horrible choice. I think that there are things where you can save quite a bit of cost by self representing, especially if it's not the most important decisions.
Mr. Alex, as an author, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
Short-term goals, I'm working towards getting 500 seats, 1,000 seats. We just put up our Substack, howtowinyourdivorce.substack.com, and our website. Pre-sales will be up in October. Book's just with the final editor. I kind of used Rob Fitzpatrick's method of writing useful books and their work with helpthisbook.com. So I've been through about 30 beta readers so far, about 80% completion. And they were marking it up with this website with parts that they thought were confusing, a little bit slow here, where they found value or loved it. And it was interesting over time to watch the graph of all the different chapters change from kind of being a mixed bag to mostly being useful. And love it.
Good luck to your goals, Mr. Alex, and looking forward for more success for your winning your divorce. And what will be your piece of advice for those people out there want to be an author like you?
Start writing, and if you get stuck, for me, the part that I get stuck is either the first sentence or the paragraph. And I started doing two. Number one, I would call someone and ask them, read the past two chapters and say, just give me the first sentence. And whether it worked or not, I knew what to write next to continue. And B, if that person is I'll run the past two ChatGPT and write me out one more. A lot of times you don't, but it helps kind of just get the juicy flowing again.
Thank you for that advice, Mr. Alex. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
That influenced me. Not ones in this space, but my favorite books of all time are Frank Herbert's Dune. I'm a big nerd for science fiction, and someday I'd like to kind of jump over into that space, but we'll see. It's a bit more commitment.
Thank you for that recommendation. And do you believe having a strong, long team is always necessary, or can parents successfully represent themselves with proper guidance?
Yeah, I definitely think people can successfully represent themselves, and I think that they'll save money because I saw multiple examples of it. And there's you end up getting quite a bit of help from both the other side as well as there's just so much literature out there with how to go through different processes and legal processes. But it's the same thing. Like, it depends how good at navigating systems you are already, and I think that's a question someone would have to ask themselves.
The broader impact and reflections of the book itself. How has writing this book changed the way you view the family court system?
Not sure if it changed it, but the whole process changed it because I just understood how much of a system it is. And when you go through it, I think it took what I would have intellectually known to kind of more know that the cost of it is quite a bit, both the monetary as well as the emotional cost. And it doesn't, in hindsight, it doesn't make sense to me that that's the process that we use for separations or divorces. And I think as a society we kind of have to ask ourselves, is this the best way to divide assets and plan families? because I suspect it's not. It is a good way to kind of keep courts busy and line pockets.
What do you hope divorcing parents feel after reading your book? Empowered, and reassured, or prepared?
I think empowered, and as well, uh, I've had a couple of the beta readers say that, oh, this is exactly what I went through. I wish that I'd had these kind of ideas before, because they didn't, they explained that they didn't have the words to explain what was going on. And so there's a common language that this book puts out that I think would be useful to everyone.
Useful for everyone, for sure. If there's one chapter or section of your book that every parent should highlight and revisit often, what would it be and why?
Um, my favorite chapter, I think, would be um, Manage the System, which is chapter 5, I believe, off the top of my head. So I was trying to look it up quick. I mean, when you go into the chapter, it gives a lot of details about how to, what the core process is going to be and strategies around that.
Mr. Alex, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, my other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too, comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well, geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast, law 101 and mental health 101, love letters in third season, and movie 101 review and music 101 in fourth season, and science 101 and sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Alex, looking back, what do you consider the biggest lesson you learned from your own battle-tested journey through family court?
The biggest lesson, I think, is the hopeful one at the end, is you will grow through this process, and the amount of energy when it's not focused on that process, you can do a lot with your life right after.
Mr. Alex Dane, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. Hoping for more and more empowering books like this to come. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your upcoming book?
For sure. Thank you all, and please check out www.divorce.com and adalineardivorce.com. Thank you so much, Danny.
You no worries at all. Yes, people, let's support Mr. Alex Arden, because if you support him, for sure, more winning advocacy to come. So, Mr. Alex, thank you so much for your time. Marticon people, see you soon.